Chapter 5. At the end of the children's first year in boarding school, it was the end of November 1989, they returned home. Our second Christmas in Africa was spent in our newly built home in Kisangani. There was a lot of joy in our home during this time as the children were home from boarding school, and Billy's mom and dad were there visiting, and we were finally able to unpack our 20-foot container. Mom and Dad had come with their suitcases stuffed full of gifts. Some things we really needed. Others we didn't need, but it sure was good to have for a change. They brought several pounds of cheese, boxes of macaroni and cheese, candy, so many other goodies. We had been living in our new house only a few weeks, and there were a few finishing touches that had to be done. Mom and Dad fit right in, helping us, and we had a wonderful time making memories that would last a lifetime. In late January 1990, it was time for Mom and Dad to go home and for the children to return to boarding school. It was decided that Billy, Dad, and the children would drive to Isiro. We had heard the roads were dry, and since it was only 350 miles, it would only take a few hours to drive it. But true to African ways, that was not the case. In some places, the roads were almost unpassable, with holes so deep there was nothing to do but get out, chop some trees down, and make a new path. The trip took 21 and a half hours, and everyone was totally exhausted when they arrived in Isiro. It made a memory for Billy's dad that he never forgot. Mom and I had taken a MAF plane to Isiro and arrived within a couple of hours. When we found out how long it took them to drive, we were so glad we had went by airplane. When we were all together in Isiro, we sent the children by MAF on to boarding school, and Billy and I and Mom and Dad took a short car trip to a small village called Andudu. The whole village was like an Assembly of God compound. Everyone belonged to the church. They had a hospital there, and there was a house for missionaries. In fact, that's where we stayed. We spent several nights, and Mom and Dad were able to see what it was like to actually be out in the bush where there was not even any electricity. A memory about that trip is that the day we arrived, it was Mom's birthday. We had brought a can of Spam. We sliced that, dredged it in flour, and fried it, and had chicken fried Spam, and then sang happy birthday to Mom. When we arrived back to Isiro, we then flew to Kinshasa, where Mom and Dad would catch a flight back to the USA, and Billy and I would fly on back to Kisangani. When we arrived home in Kisangani, it was only a few short months, and then it would be time for our first furlough. Our normal schedule was 4 years on the field and 1 year back home itinerating and raising our budget to return. But because we counted the 1 year and a half of language school as part of that first term, our first term on the field was up after only 2 years of being in Africa. Soon, the children would be home from boarding school, and we would head back to Texas for our first furlough.